Love, trust, heartbreak, and self-discovery. My story is one that I believe will teach you something important about relationships and life. This isn't just any story, it's my life. It's about how I met the love of my life, how we built a beautiful relationship, and how everything changed when I discovered the truth. But most importantly, it's about how I learned to heal, move forward, and become stronger. I still remember the day I met Ryan. It was 6 years ago, and I was working at a bookstore in San Francisco. Books were my escape, and that small store felt like my second home. One rainy afternoon, Ryan walked in. He was tall, with dark brown hair, and his smile was warm and inviting. As I arranged books on the shelf, he approached me and asked, "Can you recommend a good book?" His deep voice and kind eyes made me feel comfortable instantly. I handed him a novel and said, "This is one of my favorites." He smiled and replied, "Then I'll take it." From that day on, Ryan started visiting the bookstore often. Sometimes he bought books, other times he simply sat and read. But every time he came, he talked to me. Slowly, our conversations became longer and more meaningful. One evening, he finally asked, "Seema, would you like to have dinner with me?" I hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "I'd love to." That dinner was the beginning of something beautiful. Over plates of pasta and glasses of wine, we talked for hours. He told me he was a photographer and loved traveling. I shared my dream of opening my own bookstore one day. He listened, truly listened, and that made me feel special. For the next 3 years, we were inseparable. He surprised me with my favorite coffee on cold mornings, left sweet notes in my books, and made me believe in love like never before. Ryan filled my life with love, leaving little notes in my books and making me feel like the most important person in his world. We traveled together, watched sunsets on the beach, and laughed until our stomachs hurt. Then, one unforgettable day, he took me to the top of a hill where we often walked. As the wind blew through my hair, he got down on one knee, pulled out a ring, and said, "Seema, I can't imagine my life without you. Will you marry me?" Tears filled my eyes as I whispered, "Yes." It was the happiest moment of my life. 6 months later, we were married in a small, intimate ceremony with close friends and family. I wore a simple white gown, and Ryan looked handsome in a navy blue suit. As we exchanged vows, he held my hands tightly and whispered, "I will love you forever." For the first 2 years, our marriage was everything I had ever dreamed of. We moved into a cozy apartment and decorated it together. He took candid pictures of me when I wasn't looking, and I wrote love letters that I hid in his backpack. We cooked together, danced in our living room, and shared our dreams for the future. I trusted him completely. But life doesn't always go the way we plan. Slowly, things started to change. At first, it was small. Ryan started coming home later than usual. When I asked, he would simply say, "Work was hectic today." Our conversations became shorter, and he was always on his phone, smiling at messages that weren't from me. One night, I finally asked, "Ryan, is something wrong?" He sighed and replied, "No, Emma. I'm just tired. Work is stressful." I believed him, why wouldn't I? He was my husband. But then, the late nights became more frequent. The love notes stopped. The surprise coffee never came. And one day, I found a receipt that changed everything. His jacket pocket. It was a dinner receipt from a fancy restaurant, dated last Thursday, the same night he told me he was working late. My heart pounded in my chest. Maybe it was a business dinner, I told myself. Maybe I was overthinking. But deep down, I knew. A few weeks later, I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of his phone vibrating. He was fast asleep beside me. Curious, I picked up his phone to silence it. The screen lit up with a message, "Miss you already. Can't wait to see you again." My hands shook as I stared at the words, my mind racing. Who was she? The next morning, I couldn't hold it in any longer. Over breakfast, I asked, "Ryan, are you seeing someone else?" He looked up, surprised. "What?" "No, Emma." "Why would you ask that?" Without a word, I pulled out the receipt and placed it on the table. "Explain this." His face turned pale. He hesitated before finally muttering, "It's nothing. Just dinner with a friend." "Which friend?" I asked, my voice breaking. He didn't answer. And that silence told me everything. After what felt like an eternity, he finally admitted, "Her name is Sophie. She works with me." I never meant for this to happen. Tears filled my eyes. "How long?" A long pause. Then, barely a whisper, 6 months. 6 months. For 6 months, the man I loved, the man I trusted, had been lying to me. The days that followed were the hardest of my life. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Every corner of our home reminded me of him, of us. The laughter we once shared, the promises we made, all felt like a cruel joke. Then, one evening, as I sat alone in the dark, I realized I had two choices. I could let this pain destroy me, or I could rebuild myself. I chose to rebuild. The first thing I did was remove all reminders of him. The photos, the gifts, the memories, I packed them away, refusing to let them haunt me any longer. Then, I asked myself, what does Emma want? I started journaling my thoughts every morning. Writing became my therapy. I took long walks in the park, reclaiming spaces that once belonged to us and making them mine again. One day, as I walked through the park, I saw a little boy learning to ride a bicycle. He fell, but instead of giving up, he got up and tried again. Watching him, I thought, if he can keep going, so can I. Determined to rebuild my life, I joined a painting class. I had always loved art but never had time for it before. Pouring my emotions onto the canvas helped me heal. But the most important step in my journey was forgiving Ryan, not for him, but for myself. Holding on to anger only hurt me more, and I refused to let it control me any longer. A new beginning. A year later, I took a solo trip to Greece. Standing by the ocean, watching the waves crash against the shore, I felt truly free. I had survived. I had grown. And most importantly, I had learned the greatest lesson of all: I don't need someone else to complete me. I am already whole. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful in improving your English skills. If you liked this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others who want to learn English too. To make learning easier, watch this video again and try to repeat the sentences aloud. This will help you understand the vocabulary better and improve your pronunciation. And if you want more interesting stories like this, stay tuned for our next video. See you soon and happy learning!